I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Manager at Episcopal Relief and Development. And for over 80 years, this organization has been working together with supporters and partners to deliver measurable and sustainable change in 4 signature areas. So those are nurturing the potential of caregivers and young children, reducing violence against women and girls, strengthening communities' resilience to climate change, and facilitating humanitarian response to disasters. And we take our mandate from the words of Jesus that are found in Matthew 25 that call us to feed the hungry, care for the sick, and welcome the stranger. And American Jewish World Service is the leading Jewish organization working to fight poverty and pursue justice in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean. Now, I love holidays. I love holidays, and I'm so excited for this collaboration as we celebrate several traditions of this holiday season. And we've chosen to host a celebration that highlights holidays that celebrate light around this time of year, including Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Diwali, Yule, Boxing Day, and Christmas. And we have 6 panelists that we want to welcome who are going to share with you about their traditions and their celebrations, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. And I would also like to ask you to fill out a program evaluation at the end. We're going to provide a link in the chat. And now I'd like to introduce my co-facilitator, Kristen Kendrick, or KK, who is the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Justice at American Jewish World Service. KK?
Thank you, Meredith. It's so nice to be here with you today and with everyone. I'm Kristen Kendrick, call me KK. I use they, them pronouns, and as Meredith shared, I'm the VP of DEIRJ, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Justice at American Jewish World Service, or AJWS, and I put the links to both of our organizations in the chat if you would like to check them out. It's important to me to open inclusive spaces with a land acknowledgement, so I'm going to do that. I'm here today on Lenape-Hoking in New York City, traditional, ancestral, and unceded land of the Lenape people who are still here despite the past and present violence of genocide, forced displacement, assimilation, and erasure. And I'm thankful that the Lenape people in and around Lenape-Hoking are so gracious with sharing spaces to invite settlers to be in community and learn. Anyone who's living on Turtle Island or North America and not Indigenous is a settler, and it's important for us to be in community and continually work on repair. I also acknowledge our benefit here on Turtle Island from the legacy of stolen labor on the backs of Black folks, Indigenous folks, Chinese immigrants, Japanese immigrants, migrant workers from the Philippines, from Mexico, from Central and South America, and more at the foundation of this country and its wealth. I welcome you to share your acknowledgements in the chat. If you are unsure of the land you're on, I am going to just put this link in the chat to help you out. And I also want to remind us of our neurodiversity in our space today. We're all thinking, communicating, learning, presenting, and processing very differently. And so just be mindful of that with each other today. And if there are additional accessibility needs in the space, please let me know. The captions are on. You can toggle them on and off on the bottom of your Zoom screen. And as we said before, we have interpretation on, which you can also click on the bottom of your Zoom screen in the interpretation globe, click into English or Spanish. For folks who are blind or low vision, I am a Black person. I have a head wrap on, big black glasses, a black top, and I am in front of a brick wall. So I'm here today to co-facilitate with Meredith, and I'm also doubling as a panelist to talk about Kwanzaa. And I just want to add here that as each of us talks about a holiday, please remember that we're just one person speaking from our experience, and there are as many ways to observe a holiday as there are people observing it. So this space is personal to our experiences. With that said, we are joined by Venus Devnani, Reverend Stephen Polikas, Gina Grossbauer, Vesta Odru Kwarteng, and Ross Baroff. And I invite each of you to introduce yourselves and tell us what holiday you'll be sharing around. And Venus, I will start with you.
Great. It's so great to see all of you. Hi, I'm Venus Devnani. I'm the Executive Vice President at American Jewish World Service, and my background is in leading complex systems and organizations and movements and fighting for our most fundamental rights for marginalized and underserved populations around the world and in the US. I'm based in New Jersey on Lenape-Muncie territory, and of particular interest to me is the intersection of faith-based practice in advancing issues like this. So I am delighted to be here with you all today in a space that feels curious and interfaith and interested in light, because we all need a little bit of light.
Thank you, Venus, and welcome. Father Stephen. Oh, I think you're muted.
Thanks so much, KK. I'm the Reverend Stephen Pollakis. I'm the rector of All Saints Episcopal Church in Brooklyn, New York. Today I happen to be in Washington, D.C. I'm a member of the board of Episcopal Relief and Development. I'm very privileged to be able to serve in that capacity. And I also have the privilege of being able to lead monthly spiritual reflections with the staff of Episcopal Relief and Development. So it's really a joy to be with all of you today. I'll be talking about Christmas from a US perspective. And I consulted the secret liturgical calendar, and I confirmed that Christmas will be on December 25th this year. So that's the date of the holiday that we are celebrating. And I'm very excited to be with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Reverend Stephen. Gina.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. My name is Gina Grossbauer. I have my own business called Shivers. I am out of the Cary, Raleigh, North Carolina area, and usually really focus more on the spooky side of things. So kind of bringing more light to the dark. I do a lot of work with a company called Solely Holistic and do a lot of presentations on folklore and different types of religious backgrounds, things like that. So today we'll be talking about Yule and the different celebrations that accompany Yule and Yuletide. So thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Vesta.
Thank you, Christine. My name is Vesta Odro-Kwarteng, a member of the Global Program Team of Episcopal Relief and Development, serving in the Climate Resilience Department. I support Episcopal Relief and Development Partnership in Tanzania and Burundi to implement international social and economic development programs that have an impact on women and climate resilience. Community development work is my joy and passion. I am based in the regional office in Ghana. I come to you today sharing how Ghanaians celebrate Christmas and Boxing Day. But just for a word of caution, Boxing Day does not really have any special traditions of giving like we have in other countries. It's simply a day or a time for the continuation of Christmas celebration. Therefore, most of my submissions this morning will be centered on Christmas in Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you, Vesta. And Ross.
Thank you. Thank you, KK. So pleased to be here. Hi, everyone. Ross Baroff, calling in from unceded Lenape land and what is now known as Philadelphia. I am honored to be the board liaison at American Jewish World Service, where I get to work with our incredible board of trustees. I will be speaking about Hanukkah from the Jewish perspective. I had a look just now at the calendar to see when Hanukkah starts, because there's a great joke amongst many Jews how we never actually know when the holidays are until someone asks us and we need to look it up. So it will be starting on the 26th, and I look forward to telling everyone more about it after.
Thank you, Ross. Meredith, shall I send it to you for the first question?
Yeah, thank you all so much for those introductions and for being here with us. I'm excited to learn from you and to celebrate with you. And I'd like to start out with a brief overview of each of your holidays. So what are the origins of your holiday? Who usually celebrates this holiday? And some of you have already answered this, but if you didn't, when does your holiday take place in general and in 2024 or 25? Let's start with Father Stephen.
Sure. So Christmas might be a holiday that I assume everyone is pretty acquainted with. In US culture, though, it's interesting how it's actually evolved. So Christmas was not one of the original holidays that the earliest Christians celebrated. Its popularity began mostly in the 4th century in the early church, as the Roman Empire transitioned into a Christian empire. And as that happened, there was a traditional Roman festival that took place around the winter solstice called Saturnalia, that usually involved festivities and gift exchange. And when the new Christian regime swept away Saturnalia, people were pretty upset about that. And so the church decided to begin celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ on more or less that day, which is how it became fixed at the end of December 25th. In the United States, the holiday of Christmas came through the various Christian traditions that arrived in the US. But what's interesting is that many of the traditions didn't celebrate Christmas. And as a matter of fact, were quite opposed to it. As a matter of fact, the open celebration of Christmas was actually illegal in some of the early colonies and in the States. For instance, in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the celebration of Christmas publicly was actually punishable if you were caught. And that is because the folks the settlers who came to New England were fleeing the Church of England and the Church of England's own liturgical practices, which did include a celebration of Christmas. Certain symbols associated with Christmas, like Santa Claus and things like that, have absolutely nothing to do with the Bible whatsoever. And there is no biblical mandate to celebrate Christmas or even to observe it. So it's really a tradition that's grown up in the church to observe and acknowledge the coming of Christ into the world. And I think what's interesting about the US observation of that holiday is it's so divorced from the original tradition and the biblical narratives that come along with it.
Oh, I'm unmuted. Thank you so much. KK, would you like to share about Kwanzaa?
Sure, thank you. So Kwanzaa is a secular holiday that celebrates African American culture and takes place from December 26th to January 1st. Because it's a secular holiday, anyone can celebrate it, and it's generally celebrated by African Americans or people in the African diaspora, religious and non-religious. Dr. Maulana Karenga, a professor of African Studies, created Kwanzaa in 1966 as a way to bring African American communities African Americans into community after the Watts riots in Los Angeles in 1965. And for folks who aren't familiar, the Watts riots were an uprising against racist and abusive practices of the LAPD, or the LA Police Department, and the consequences of systemic racism in the city. For Kwanzaa, Dr. Karenga combined aspects of different African harvest celebrations to form the foundations for the week-long holiday. And each of the 7 days celebrates a different principle, also called the Nguzo Saba. And the principles are Umoja, or unity, Kujichagulia, or self-determination, Ujima, or collective work and responsibility, Ujama, or cooperative economics, Nia, or purpose, Kumba, or creativity, and Imani, or faith. Thank you, Meredith.
Thank you, KK. Gina, would you like to give us an overview of Yule?
Sure. So kind of piggybacking off of Father Stephen, a lot of the Yule celebrations were sort of stemmed when Saturnalia sort of split. So a lot of Yule and Yule celebrations come from paganistic backgrounds, and they really started by celebrating the winter solstice in 1425. So after that was really this period of Yuletide between December 20th and January 1st, of this time of manifesting, really taking accountability for everything that has happened the year before, thanking the earth for all of the harvest that has come. It's really a celebration of gratitude, of acknowledgement of self, and really gathering the people who you want to bring into the new year with you as well, with gift giving, exchanges, things of that nature. So there's a lot of roots in the pagan, but there's also a lot of roots in the Catholicism. So it's a good combination of kind of different things.
Thanks so much, Gina. Venus, would you like to tell us about Diwali and an overview of that?
Yeah, sure. So Diwali means different things to different people. So I'm going to talk about Diwali from my perspective, which is as a person of Northeast Indian and Hindu in ancestry, but who was born and raised in the US. So in North India, Diwali is really associated with the celebration of Lord Rama's return to a holy land called Ayodhya. And this was after defeating a demon king called Ravana. So this is a pretty long and epic and complicated tale that is detailed in the ancient Hindu epic, which some of you may have heard of, called the Ramayana. So according to the legend, Rama, who's a king, and his wife Sita returned to Ayodhya after a very long period of exile and a really deep period of distress for the land while they were defeating this demon king who was threatening really the future of humanity and civilization. So upon their return, of course, the citizens of Ayodhya were joyful. And to mark their return and to help them find their way home, they illuminated the city with oil lamps, which are called diyas, and they set off fireworks to celebrate their return. And it's really marked as a period of joy, prosperity, and triumph of good over evil. One thing that I think Diwali has in common with a lot of other sort of world religions celebrating light at this time is that it also coincides with the harvest festival and the harvest season in North India. And so it's also sort of a time that symbolizes abundance and the beginning of the new year.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Venus. Vesta, would you like to tell us an overview about Christmas and Boxing Day in Ghana?
Thank you, Meredith. I'll start by sharing a brief background to how Christmas celebration became part of the culture of Ghanaians. Ghana, as a country, currently has about three main religions: Africa traditional religion, Christianity, and Islam. Most Ghanaians in pre-colonial times were Africa traditional religious people or believers. So Ghana encountered Christianity when the Europeans came to the shores of the then Gold Coast to trade with our ancestors. They brought with them the Christian religion, and that is how Ghanaians have since embraced the religion. According to a recent government census, about 71% of Ghanaians are Christians. And so Christmas is very big and celebrated in this part of the country. With a Christian majority, the festival, when Christmas is approaching, it's amazing what happens. There's a lot of celebration. People plan a lot of activities, entertainment for adults, for kids, and all that. And usually our Christmas celebration actually spans between December 20th to the first week of January. Thank you.
Thanks, Vesta. And Ross, would you like to give us an overview of Hanukkah?
Sure. Sure. So I want to start with what the name of the holiday is, or more so how you spell it. Hanukkah actually has no real spelling. There's like 12 different ways. If you ask 10 different people, you can get 10 different spellings, which is always so fun to see. And it's always so fun to see like how end up with it. But the meaning of the word means rededication, and I'll get into that a bit more after. And it's celebrated by Jews around the world. And I'd say it's probably one of the better known and more popular of Jewish holidays, but it's actually more so considered a minor holiday. And I just did air quotes for those who couldn't see. And I say that doesn't mean it's less important anyway, but it's not in the Torah or the five books of Moses or something we know as the Old Testament. And it also doesn't have any prohibitions against work as some other holidays, and the Sabbath does. That's what makes it a minor versus a major holiday. But there are two main stories that are associated with the origin of Hanukkah, and both are really referred to as the miracles of Hanukkah. So the first one that I'm going to talk about would really make a great action thriller movie. Back in the day, after the Greeks slash Syrians, not direct parallels to today's countries or communities. It was sort of the Greek Empire that also controlled parts of Syrian area, took over Jerusalem. There was a ton of debate and infighting within the Jewish community about whether to assimilate into the Hellenistic culture that was going on or to push back. And there's a lot of debate going on because a lot of Jewish practice at the time was also being banned. And so there was a family called the Maccabees or the Hasmoneans that were led by members of the priestly class that were very anti-assimilation. And they formed a guerrilla group and rallied the community to fight back and eventually won and freed the city. So that's the first main miracle, that this small group was able to fight back this big oppressor. And in the city at the time was the temple. And that was the only place where many types of prayers could occur, only place where sacrifices occur, and really is the holiest place in all of Judaism. And the Hellenes had ransacked and ravaged it, so the Maccabees rededicated it, hence the name of the holiday. And one of the relics in the temple was a lamp known as the Eternal Flame, which is where the second miracle comes in. That lamp was supposed to always be lit, but it was unlit at the time, and there's only enough oil left that they could relight it for a day, and it would take at least 8 days to make more oil. So imagine you need to charge your phone, you only have one hour charge left, but it lasts for another 8 days. They managed to light the lamp with that one day of oil, and it lasted 8 days, and that's where the other miracle of the holiday comes in. And don't worry, my other answers will be a lot shorter and much more keeping to time.
Yeah, that was great, Ross. Thank you so much. KK, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. And thank you all for sharing the foundations of your holidays. Let's continue with sharing what the significance of light is during your holiday. Gina, can we start with you?
Sure. So really the background of Yule is celebrating and acknowledging the end of the harvest season. You see a lot of the similar happenings and honorings around Halloween time of thanking the sun and the sun god for bringing great harvest for the season. And Christmas time and Yuletide is no different, with acknowledging for the next year, thankful for the year before, thankful for the following, thankful for a number of earth elements as well. So it's really rooted in gratitude. It's really rooted in acknowledgement of what the earth, what the world, what other people have brought forth for the year before, and what manifestations and gratitude can be brought into the new year. There's also a lot of different gift exchanges as well. And so it's said that any people that you want to bring into the new year with you will be the people that you exchange gifts with, essentially exchanging energy. So it really is about honoring other people, honoring earth, honoring itself. And I don't really think there's anything more light and hopeful than bringing gratitude into that situation.
Thank you, Gina. That's really beautiful. Ross.
Sure. So coming from that lamp that I mentioned in the temple, also known as a candelabra or a menorah, part of the holiday now is lighting a type of menorah known as a Chanukah each night of the holiday. And people often put them in their windows. Some people use candles to light it. Some people use oil. And a new candle or new oil pot is lit each night until you get to the 8th night. And I figured a little visual for those that can see on the screen. Some different types of Chanukahs. One would be like this. This is an oil one, where you would have oil, little pods of oil to hold the oil in each of these. And then this is the area known as the shamash, where you use this one to then light the other candles. And just one each night you add an additional one. And some other like more traditional looking Chanukahs might look like this one. This one is from Target. So it's always nice when Target has a little bit of representation. But some people also like to have lots of fun because there's not too much requirements with the Chanukah besides for they all need to be of equal height and direct, besides for the shamash that can be a little bit higher, a little different. So to show off another fun Chanukah is this rocket on, which is my wife's favorite one. And so people will light these each night. And often you're supposed to put them sort of in your window to share and spread the light with others.
Thank you, Ross. Love the visuals of the Chanukahs. Thank you for sharing with us. How about you, Vesta?
Thanks, KK. I wish I had visuals like that to share. However, so lights during the Christmas symbolizes the belief of the Christian faith, Jesus Christ being the light of the world. For us in Ghana, light in our holiday signifies the commencement of the season, evoking excitement in the country, especially in the major cities. I've not had the rural experience, so cannot say much about rural Christmas celebration. However, as a girl who has grown up in Accra, which is the capital, Christmas decors, especially Christmas trees in homes, are decorated with lights for the purpose of making the tree beautiful and also setting the homes into Christmas mood. Having families and friends come together to have a wonderful time. Also, some office spaces like banks, malls, shopping centers, and other public spaces also put on Christmas trees with lights decorated, making it a more festive occasion. It just tells us that Christmas is just at the corner and the festive season is fast approaching. Lights for me actually has not been part of our Christmas celebration until recently when it became very prominent, where we have an organization called Jandel, is an NGO, and they've tasked themselves to decorate the city, especially where I live in Accra, with a lot of lights during Christmas, and is a sight to behold. You go into the streets in the night during Christmas, and it's amazing. Growing up as a child, we didn't used to have that. So I really appreciate it. Sometimes I just take the opportunity and take the kids out at night to just see the lights that are glowing for Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, Vesta. I'm gonna have to Google Christmas in Accra so I can see what that looks like. Father Stephen.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, Christmas replaced the Roman holiday of Saturnalia, which was around the winter solstice. And so the idea of light and of Christ being the light coming into the world has been associated with Christmas since its very beginning. So there's two things very briefly coming from the Bible. The traditional understanding of Christmas and the narrative of Jesus' birth to the Virgin Mary comes from two of the four Gospels. That's the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Luke. And in the Gospel of Matthew, in the second chapter, there's a story about wise men coming from the east who followed a star. And so there's an association there with following light towards Christ, and clearly associated with darkness and night, and a light guiding us towards God in the nighttime. And that holiday, the celebration of that star resting over Jesus, is something we celebrate in the holiday of Epiphany, which I'll get to in just a second. But in the Gospel of John, which is the fourth gospel, that tells a more abstract story of Jesus coming into the world that isn't really a birth narrative, but it's more of a philosophical one. And in it, it refers to Christ as being the light coming into the world. This is something that Christians who follow the Nicene Creed recite week after week, as we say that God is light from light, so that Christ is the light coming from the light of God. Light not being created, but being passed on from God of the same being. So light is definitely one of the central things theologically that we understand Christmas to be celebrating.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm learning a lot from you today. Thank you, Father Stephen. Venus.
Yeah, so I think Diwali is known to many people as the Festival of Lights. Light is a very big component of Diwali. There are three things that Diwali sort of symbolizes. One is victory of light over darkness. The second is good over evil. And the third is around knowledge over ignorance. And so there's a component of light in each of these tenets. I would say that one is around the spiritual significance and sort of spiritual awakening and wisdom. So there is this belief that by lighting lamps, so diyas, as I explained before, there is this dispelling of sort of ignorance and negativity from one's life. In my family, we actually talk about reflecting on, this is like a little bit intense, but reflecting on what our character flaws might be. And actually saying, you know, as this new year starts, I'm going to sort of, you know, shed light on, you know, on something that feels a little bit shadow or sort of internal to me. And that is sort of a way in which I can spiritually awaken in this new year. There is a big component. I think that this is the most sort of ubiquitous with Diwali that I talked a little bit about before, around, you know, commemorating the return of Lord Rama to Ayodhya after defeating the demon king Ravana, and the illumination of the city with lamps to welcome him and his wife Sita home. And Hindus talk about that really as signifying sort of a triumph of righteousness and belief and willingness to be in a fight, if it's a good fight. And I would say that the third piece is really around our deity of wealth and prosperity, who is the goddess Lakshmi. So a lot of Diwali is dedicated to worshiping the goddess Lakshmi. And we illuminate our homes to help her find her way to our homes, to give us her blessings and really to invite prosperity and well-being into our lives for the current year.
You, Venus, that's also really beautiful. I'm going to round us out with just talking about light and Kwanzaa. So for each day of Kwanzaa, a candle is lit to represent one of the 7 principles that I mentioned before. The 7 candles are called the Musaba, and the candle holder is called a kanara, and I have a visual. My kanara is very simple, but this is, you know, a version of what it can look like. And the candles symbolize the sun's power and provide light because it's a holiday that celebrates the harvest, and a bountiful harvest needs, you know, the sun. So the candles are black, red, and green. So they look like this. And the black represents the people, and it's put in the center of the kanara. And it is lit first to symbolize unity. And then there are 3 red candles, and they go to the left of the black candle to represent the struggle or the bloodshed of the past. And the red candles represent Kuji Chagalia, Ujama, and Kuma, or self-determination, cooperative economics, and creativity. Cooperative economics and creativity. It's a mouthful to say. And the green candles go to the right of the black candle and represent future and hope, and land. And they represent Nia, Ujima, and Imani, or purpose, collective work, and responsibility and faith. Meredith, I will pass it back to you for the next question.
All right, thank you so much for sharing about the significance of light in your holiday. I'm learning a lot. Now, could you please tell us about some of your favorite traditions during the holiday and what celebrations look like? Vesta, I know you said that there are a lot of celebrations in the city. Would you like to go ahead and tell us about that?
Sure, thank you, Meredith. So my favorite traditions during the holidays really include church events that are planned for the eve of Christmas Day itself, which is the 25th, and then the 31st December, which a lot of churches actually have themed crossover, walkover, whatever, because what is done is on 31st, we meet to actually pray together and have church activities to welcome the new year, which is first. For the event of the 24th, or the eve of Christmas, it's usually an event where the children's department of the church have what we call 24th night, where we have children, you know, come recite Christmas-themed Bible verses. They do some drama and also, you know, like sing carols. And you know how kids can, you know, sing their Christmas carols. It makes this all fun. The 25th also is where the church choir of my church actually sits to render Christmas carols, and also have what we call the night lessons, where Bible verses from the concerning the birth of Christ is read out for us to hear. There are other events that happen around the city where we have popular musicians having their events, you know, crowning the year and all that. But one thing that I would like to call on, if I do talk about it, it will not make it fun, is what we eat during this traditional Christmas time in Ghana. Usually it's about a lot of pastries, a lot of cakes, a lot of peanuts. But as a child, when we were having Christmas, we only ate rice and chicken once a year. But present generation have theirs different. But we also prepare our local traditional fufu and goat light soup, and I intend to do same this year for my family. Thank you.
Thank you, Vesta. I agree with Shannon. I love hearing about the food traditions. Also didn't know that about December 31st, so thank you for that. Venus, we'll go to you next.
Thanks. Yeah, so Diwali is easily my favorite time of year. It feels like a very auspicious time. I think it's also a time that is sort of, I mean, I don't know about any of you all, but like I feel like no holiday is sort of complete unless there's a little bit of family drama. And so we do have a little bit of family drama every year around Diwali, specifically around finding and agreeing on what the most auspicious time is for our puja. A puja is what we do at home. It's like our religious worship ceremony. It's very sweet. The family comes together. But there is an auspicious time, a most auspicious time that will allow the goddess Lakshmi to find you and your home. And so there's always kind of an argument every year about the most auspicious time, and sometimes the auspicious time is between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. So, like no one can make it for that. It's a really sweet time, preceding Diwali is this 9-night period of time called Navaratri. A lot of people fast during it. My family is vegetarian during it. I'm vegetarian during it. It feels like a little bit of a cleansing time. We'll also thoroughly clean our homes, and we'll prepare our murtis. Murtis are, so Hindus tend to have mandirs in our home. I actually have mine sort of right behind me, where, sort of statues, not representing God, but sort of allowing you to worship and care for. They're called murtis. That sort of symbolize God within your home. So we'll do a lot of cleaning of our home and preparation of our murtis. The family comes together for our puja, and we really set intentions for the year. We think about starting fresh. We ask forgiveness. It's a time of year where we do a lot of feeding of animals who might not have homes, a lot of sort of donations for, ancestors for whom we may not have been able to, worship or care for properly. Our homes are, really lit. No room in your home should be unlit for Diwali. And I also brought just a little visual of rangolis, which are made during Diwali, which sort of invoke the lotus flower. So this is the center, and then there are petals like this, and so you can sort of imagine, petals. And I also bought this at Target. I'm very, very excited whenever I find Hindu representation anywhere in the world other than like in my home.
Thank you so much, Venus. Father Stephen.
Yeah, so I think in our discussions, we've been talking about kind of two different things. One is a public celebration of these holidays, and the other is a domestic celebration of these holidays. And of course, there's a lot of overlap between the two. Christmas was originally a public celebration by Christians. And I think just on this theme of kind of delineating what is culturally American Christmas and what is not, Christmas officially in my tradition is actually 12 days long. And it begins on December 25th. So the reason that people go to church on Christmas Eve is because it's an ancient Christian tradition that after the sun sets, sort of the day begins. And so Christians would gather late at night and greet the new sun on the 25th. So that kind of got pushed back a little bit. So now we celebrate Christmas Eve earlier and earlier, but technically it's the eve of Christmas. And then Christmas lasts for 12 days. Now, in American sort of secular culture, Christmas begins somewhere around Thanksgiving, maybe even earlier than that. But actually, technically, in my tradition, that is the period called Advent, which is a time for reflection and austerity to prepare for the holiday. So Christmas keeps like inching back into Advent year after year. But in church, we don't decorate the church for Christmas until after the Sunday, after the service on the Sunday before Christmas. And that's when we begin to make the preparations. And the trees and everything stay up in the church through January 6th. So there are the 12 days of Christmas, and then those are capped off on January 6th with the celebration of Epiphany, which I mentioned earlier. So it's kind of an interesting contrast. Actually, a lot of people come to church this time of year hoping for like a Christmassy vibe, and we just can't offer it because it's not Christmas, it's Advent.
All right, thank you so much, Father Stephen. KK, do you want to tell us about some of your favorite traditions and celebrations around Kwanzaa?
Sure, like Hanukkah, but different candles, different thing. So generally, there's a lot of art, community engagement, and joy during Kwanzaa, which I love, and we'll say more about when we get to the next question. And for me personally, my own celebration is pretty introspective and quiet. I like to spend the beginning of each day reflecting on the day's principle and how I'll weave it into my day. And then at the end of the day, I light my Kinara and I reflect on the day and the principle. And I really love music. So then I listen to my favorite Black artists after my reflection. So I keep it very simple, very personal. Thank you, Meredith.
I love that. And Ross.
Sure. So there's a couple of traditions associated around Hanukkah. Sorry for my dog now joining us for this. She loves Hanukkah as well. So one of that, like most of them are more modern. One of them, like people play this game called Dreidel, which involves a spinning top. Some people claim it goes back to the early times of the temple, like a way people would study Torah in secret. Apparently, it was just invented a couple hundred years ago in Germany. But anyway, my favorite traditions are similar to the way we speak about a lot of Jewish holidays. Like most Jewish holidays can be summed up by saying they tried to kill us, they couldn't, let's eat. So, as everyone loves, food is a big tradition around Hanukkah, mainly fried food in honor of the oil. So the two big ones are sufganiyot and latkes. Sufganiyot are fried donuts, usually jelly filled, but some people get really extravagant. Like I like to fill mine with Biscoff spread, like the speculoos butter. And then latkes are basically just big hash browns, best way to describe them. But as Vina said, what's a holiday without some good family drama? So there's always a great debate with latkes over what you eat them with. Sour cream or applesauce. Or not to yuck his yum, weirdly, my father-in-law likes his with grape jelly, which is apparently a central Pennsylvania thing. But that's a whole nother story. So I'm just gonna like have some audience participation. And for anyone that's ever had a latke or regularly eats latkes, invite you to put whether you prefer it with sour cream or applesauce in the chat. And if you like it with if you don't say sour cream, you're wrong, but that's okay. And he's my boss, so I can't judge him. I'm pretty sure Joshua just said ketchup. But yes, those are the big traditions around Hanukkah. I'll talk a little bit about some music a bit after.
Thanks, Ross. That reminds me of the debate in the South. Do grits go with sugar or salt? And I'm team salt and cheese. And then Gina, we will go to you now.
Yeah, to answer Ross from Central Pennsylvania, grape jelly for sure. But yeah, so for Yule, one of the biggest celebrations is kind of tonight. So a lot of people who celebrate Yule kind of kick it off tomorrow. So tonight is thought of as Krampusnacht or Krampus night. And this is the night where essentially children would sort of be good or bad. This is where that naughty or nice comes from. But Saint Nick was really a big person for Yule celebrations, and his birthday is tomorrow, the 6th. So many of the Christmas traditions, the Santa Claus traditions that we have today, really rooted from Saint Nick Day on December 6th. So tonight, many people would put out shoes and baskets and hope that things would sort of arrive from Saint Nick, who was this very generous man. And all of the celebrations that would lead up to Yule on the actual winter solstice would be some of the celebrations with elves and with trolls. So many pranks would be played on different families from December 6th until December 21st. You would kind of have to keep your chimney shut and have your stockings by your chimney so that the actual elves that would come down the chimney wouldn't bother you too much. So it's very fun and lighthearted and very kid at heart celebrations between now and the 21st. Every year in Iceland, they do 13 days of 13 Yule lads, which are just these elves. And so they play pranks on people, people dress up, things like that. And then, as mentioned before, from the 20th to the 1st, every year is a period of gratitude, of kind of reflecting on everything that you've done the year before. Sounds very similar to the celebrations of Diwali. It's sort of, what are my shadow work things that I need to focus on? What is some of the things that I can take into the new year? And how can I be my best self? So it's some of the more public and private traditions and celebrations of Yule.
Wonderful. That sounds actually really fun. Thank you, Gina. And KK, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. I'm loving the through lines of light and the meanings in some of the different holidays. And I also love the passion that food brings out in people. And I'm with Joshua with the ketchup, and also ketchup on grits for me as well. So I love this last question. What type of traditional art do you look forward to when celebrating your holiday? And Ross, I'm going to start with you.
Great. So I actually forgot to mention in my last answer, like another sort of tradition during Hanukkah is a bit of gift giving. That's much more of a modern tradition, and it's come up more so, I think, a way of like keeping up with the Christmas gift giving in modern consumer society. But unlike some of the gifts I know, like growing up, some of my Christian friends would get, people usually give more practical gifts on Hanukkah. Like very often I would just get socks, which I loved, and things like that. Anyway, so when it comes to traditional art that I look forward to around Hanukkah, um, my favorite is probably the cheesiest of songs that you get every year. Whether it's some like the like traditional older songs like about dreidels being made of clay or things like that. You have a bunch of like, I'd say it's probably the past decade or so, a bunch of Jewish a cappella groups that just start making parodies of modern pop songs. Like imagine if Weird Al was multiplied by 10 singing a cappella only about Jewish things. Like some of the ones like that are well known, like the Maccabeats, the 613, like some of the other ones make some great just some great but also terrible a cappella parodies. And that's really that's what I love every year. So I highly recommend some people look up some of that music. And if you don't enjoy it, you're right, but it's also great and terrible at the same time.
Thanks, Ross. Venus.
Yeah, thanks. These are so fun to hear about. So this is actually, I think I'll answer very authentically and say that this is where it's a little bit hard to be a Hindu in the US, because the Diwali tradition is sort of like not celebrated in the same way that it is in India. And so I've never been to, a Diwali festival. There are, days-long festivals in India, and I really hope to go to one and feel that sense of community and joy. I mean, I would say we do our best. There are great communities, that I'm a part of here in the US, and certainly have my family. So some of my favorite things to do are, one, there is like a religious form of music, like probably many of you have in your traditions, called an arthi. And so there are arthis for different gods, and so there's a beautiful arthi for the goddess Lakshmi, who Diwali is really about in many ways. And there's a beautiful sort of line in the arthi for her that is like a very, it's basically, a way of saying, I've truly done my best this year and I ask forgiveness for misdeeds. But it's like, it's also a very joyful representation. And so I'll sort of have that arthi on, loop in my home around the Diwali time. I showed you, some of my sort of rangolis, sort of parts of rangolis that again invoke the lotus flower. So you'll find rangolis like all over, the homes of Hindus around Diwali time. You'll also find them drawn on sidewalks and driveways in colorful chalk. It's really beautiful. I love to kind of revisit the illustrations from the Hindu epics. I find that to be really warming. We tend to wear bright, vibrant colors. I actually was feeling a little bit Diwali this morning and choosing my blouse today, as I knew that we were going to be talking about this. There's also a big kind of exchange of food. There's, Indian sweets are called mithai. And around Diwali time, you get lots and lots of mithai and you give it to others, like you share freely with folks. And the idea is that you're starting the new year with a sweet mouth and a sweet taste. And something sort of funny is that, there's like a cultural kind of sweet exchange of money for the young ones in your family. And my role as young one was usurped a few years ago with my nephews. And so I no longer get slipped any cash, but I do get to, enjoy giving. We call it kharchi. Kharchi is like the term for sort of pocket, pocket money, to the young ones. So I take a lot of pleasure in doing that now.
Thank you, Venus. Vesta.
Okay, so I'm looking at the time and it seems we might not have time, but I still want to try to share the art that I'm looking forward to. I hope that you get to see it and share in my joy. Okay, so let me know when you see my screen. Is it coming?
We see it. We see it, Vesta. Thank you.
Can you hear the sound?
We can't hear the sound, but we can see the visual.
It's okay. Let me just share briefly what I wanted to say on this. So this is actually what we call the Masquerade Carnival, which happens in most of the big cities like Accra, Tema, Takoradi, and the coastal belt. It's actually a tradition that comes from the Winneba people who are in the central region of Ghana. It is a very colorful event and it's always done between 25th to the 1st. There's a whole company of masquerades who come with a lot of music, with brass band dancing. And at the end of it, all the companies meet or converge at one point and have a competition. And then the best masquerade dressed with the costume, the best dance is crowned, and they become the champions for the year until the following year when we have that event again. It is a very beautiful sight to behold.
Thank you, Vesta. And feel free to share the
It is
link.
one thing that I long to see this Christmas. Thank you.
Oh,
Sure,
sorry.
I will.
Yes, share the link so we can all see it. And Father Stephen.
Well, I'll be brief, and I think I interpreted this question slightly differently because there's a lot of art I don't enjoy in Christmas time, and I'm very aware of the privilege of being someone who celebrates Christmas to walk into Target, for instance, and see plenty of representation. But in a way, Christmas in the U.S. Is a little bit of a victim of its own success because it has strayed so far from its original roots. And so, for me personally, maybe I'm not the most fun person at a Christmas party, but I don't really love like the Mariah Carey Christmas song and stuff like that because it bears no resemblance at all to the deep spiritual meaning of the holiday that means so much to me. And so I just want to share this very ancient hymn with you very shortly. It was written in the 4th century, so shortly after Christmas was founded as a holiday by Saint Hilary of Poitiers. And it's called Jesus Refulsit Omnium, which means Jesus, light of the nations. So if you think about that, this poem, this song is 1700 years old, and the words go like this. Jesus, devoted Redeemer of all nations, has shone forth. Let the whole family of the faithful celebrate the stories. The shining star, gleaming in the heavens, makes him known at his birth, and going before, has led the Magi to his cradle. Falling down, they adore the tiny baby hidden in rags, as they bear witness to the true God by bringing a mystical gift. So take that, Mariah Carey.
Thank you, Stephen. Gina.
Yeah, so when it comes to the art side of things, it's a lot of what seems like arts and crafts. The more that you can embody things that are outdoors and bring them in is really the root of the holiday. So really that's where we get wreaths that are made from pine or from evergreen, because these are things in nature that grow and continue to thrive in the wintertime season, as well as pine trees. So that's why we bring them inside, as well as adorning them with stars. So each point of the star would represent a different area of element. So earth, wind, fire, water, metal. And that is really at the root of the art. It's very much nature-based, nature-made. But also for tonight being that Krampus night, in Austria and in Germany, they do different parades and Krampus parades, essentially to thank Saint Nick for bringing in the good times and acknowledging that life is both good and bad. So I'll share that link in the chat as well of just an example of the parade, but just many festivities in that regard, but more nature-based.
Thank you, Gina. And I know we're coming up on time, so I will just say very quickly that in Kwanzaa, the principle of Kumba, or creativity, is really important. So during the week of Kwanzaa, folks take time to engage in storytelling and paint and create art that expresses their interpretation of the holiday. In New York, there are celebrations across the city. The Apollo Theater has a huge celebration that includes dance and music and spoken word that's focused on the 7 principles. There's just a lot of Black joy and community around Kwanzaa, and I really, really love that. And we don't have time for questions because we were so excited to share our holidays. And before we're going to ask everyone to sign off with their preferred holiday greeting if they want to, the panelists. But I'm going to put this survey in the chat, and we would love it if you completed this survey. Just let us know how your experience was of this session. I want to thank Meredith for being a phenomenal partner. This is, the first time we're working together as two faith-based organizations. And I want to thank all of the panelists for sharing just like openly, just with so much energy and love. And I want to thank all of you for being here. And if the panelists, if you want to sign off, if you want to just unmute and share your greeting or your departure, whatever the word is for your holiday, please do. And just thank you all so much.
Mine is the unbelievably complicated Happy Diwali.
What coincidence? Mine is Happy Hanukkah.
Okay, so I'll put mine in the local language, Afishiapa.
Merry Christmas from me.
Happy Yuletide and solstice from me.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you all. Habari Gandhi, which is what's the news. Bye.
Bye, thank you very much.